What is the product lifecycle? The concept of a product lifecycle is a way of thinking about and mapping the life of a product. A basic model includes 4 parts. 1. Introduction. Here there's a focus on marketing to customers and introducing the idea behind the product. 2. Growth. The product is now being purchased and refined in response to feedback. 3. Maturity. This is the most profitable stage, although copycats may now be at market. 4. Decline. Customers move on to competitors or something else entirely. So how do game releases compare? In order to try and learn from the successes and failures of businesses throughout history, I've divided the life cycle of a game into 4 phases. 1. Wish lists. This phase focuses on marketing to customers and introducing the idea behind the game. 2. Release. The game is now being purchased and refined in response to feedback. 3. Sales, the most profitable stage, although copycats may now be at market. 4. Decline. Customers move on to competitors or something else entirely. When I first started thinking about this topic, my impression was that most games don't fit the product lifecycle. Your average sales chart for an indie game features a peak during the game's launch, which then rapidly declines and leaves a long tail. I initially struggled to reconcile my mental image of this graph with the concept of introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. However, when I stopped viewing the game's lifecycle purely through the lens of revenue, I became able to map a game's lifecycle onto that of a generic product. Anyone who has ever paid to advertise their unreleased Steam game in order to garner wish lists already knows that wish lists are worth money. As long as you didn't fraudulently acquire the wish lists, you can expect to convert at least some of those into sales when your game does launch. Viewed this way, your wishlist phase is equivalent to the introduction phase of the product lifecycle. Your high investment in marketing is rewarded with wishlists, which represent players buying into your idea. Comparisons may also be drawn between the growth and release phases. When your game launches, you get a sudden influx of revenue, as well as players who will provide feedback on your game. At this stage, it's common to double down on development and release smaller updates in response to feedback. Although it's true that most games sell the most copies on launch day, it's also true that it's not the whole story. According to this Game Discover Co survey, the median first-year revenue of their participants' game was 4 times that of their first week. That means that a game which earned £10,000 in its first week should earn £40,000 in its first year. I've called this third period of your game's life, which is equivalent to the maturity phase of your product lifecycle, the sales phase. This is because throughout your game's long tail, you'll likely be putting your game on sale, participating in different events, and generally exposing your game to as many potential customers as possible. At this stage, your super fans, who would pay almost any amount for your game, have already bought it, and you need to discount your game to entice any holdouts who need a nudge to buy your game. Yet, it's these holdouts who contribute 3 times more to your first year revenue than your superfans who all bought your game in your first week. Finally, we come to the decline phase, which every game eventually comes to. At some point, you must provide each game with less tender love and care as you shift your attention to new projects. However, thanks to the digital world we live in, you don't have to completely abandon your games. You can set up automatic sales for your games, storefronts can email you when they think you should put your game on sale, and you can keep your game on digital storefronts forever, unlike with physical products. If you've researched the steps it takes to publish your game, you've already been told that being an indie dev is unfortunately not a purely technical or artistic endeavor. You're also running a business. Fortunately, whereas game development is a relatively new skill set, business is not, and there's a wealth of existing knowledge to learn from. If you're developing your first game, these concepts may seem unnecessary and overly corporate. And it's true that part of the power of the product lifecycle is that you can visualize multiple games and see which stage of life each is in. If you're Blizzard and you've made almost 20 games, it's crucial that you know how to treat each one. Somewhere, Blizzard execs are most likely using the idea of the product lifecycle to determine how to grow Overwatch 2 and what to do with Overwatch 1 while it's in decline. Still, there is value for indie developers. For example, a lot of research has been done on ways to extend the lifecycle of a product. Here are a few bullet points from the Wikipedia article for product lifecycle management and how you might apply them to games. Most developers probably already expect that post-launch they'll have to advertise their game, put it on sale, port it to consoles and provide it with a few updates. However, learning from techniques more commonly applied to other product categories can open up new and exciting ways of expanding the life of your game. Although I find that interest in the kind of game bundles that Humble Bundle offers is dwindling nowadays, there is still interest around things like Steam bundles. You can bundle multiple products together, either all your own products or a mix of your own and other developers' games, and sell them at a discounted price. You could bundle all the games made by you and your team. You could also bundle your game with games from the same genre. Bundling is only one example of a special promotion, and I'm sure you can think of a few ideas that really suit your game. Changing customer consumption habits is probably not the first thing you thought of when making your game, but it's a method that is being employed already. Xbox Game Pass is a good example of games moving to a subscription model to serve gamers who want to try lots of different games without spending $60 on each one. At the smaller end of the spectrum, Sock Pop Collective makes a new small game every month, which they release to their Patreon supporters who pay £3 a month. Likewise, releasing your game episodically, like Telltale Games famously used to do, is another way of changing customer consumption habits. Instead of selling the whole game for X pounds, you make 5 episodes and charge X divided by £5. I could go on, but notice that these are models already tested on television and movies. If you can pay attention to trends in other established industries, you might just come up with an innovative new strategy for selling games. Heightening interest is another weird one. How is it different to advertising? I think it comes down to doubling down on the values of your game, rather than simply how fun it is or how many features it contains. If you're making a game in an Arctic setting with some eco-positive themes, think of things to do which will simultaneously show how much you care for the environment and also heighten interest for your game. You could organise a promotion with a charity doing work in the Arctic, or you could put your game on sale and donate the proceeds to charity. Thinking about why your game exists in a broader context than just gaming is a step in the direction of inspiring people to buy a product rather than manipulating them with sales and other tactics. Taking a step back, the only reason you should want to extend the life cycle of your product is if you believe it has real value. And I think that's something every game developer can provide. Even if your game is the simplest platformer, it will still have some deep value which you need to discover. Is your game great for speedrunning? Build a community around that and promote your most dedicated players. Is your game fun to watch? Add Twitch integration so streamers and players can interact with your game. Is your game great in co-op or multiplayer? Nurture your community and spread positivity. What was the business rationale behind making Celeste? Steam players need depth. If your game doesn't have hundreds or thousands of hours of content, Steam players won't buy your game. Sure, Celeste was Game of the Year as a pixel art 2D platformer, but that's just an outlier. These are all statements indie developers are bombarded with, and although I think the advice is not entirely wrong, it approaches the topic from a nihilistic perspective rather than an optimistic one. Don't make a platformer because Steam players don't want to pay for platformers is bad advice. Don't make a platformer because Steam players are already being served too many excellent platformers is better advice. Approach the inception phase of your game from the perspective of what need can I fulfill for the player. Often gamers don't know what they want, but also developers don't know what they can provide. Did Extremely OK Games know that Celeste was going to be a huge game for the transgender community? If they'd listened to Steam experts, they probably wouldn't have made the game. Focus on listening to what the market is asking for, and if you can honestly fulfill that need, then make your game. Your introduction may be slow as you find your game's superfans, but I hope that they'll become your biggest evangelists and allow your game to grow into a sustainable product with a long and healthy life. As game developers, we know that making games is complicated. Every aspect of making a game proves to be fractal. Our pursuit of perfection is never ending. You may be skeptical of the way I divided up the life of a game into wish lists, release, sales, and decline. But if you can suspend your disbelief for a moment, take off your developer hat and put on your business hat, I hope you'll see that BizDev doesn't have to be the enemy of honest art. I've approached this video from the perspective I'm most familiar with, that of a Steam developer. For this reason, the particulars have been very Steam specific. Wish lists, demos, sales. Whatever platform you're on though, you have to take into account the things that are unique about your medium. Remember that the medium is the message. Steam users expect something different than itch.io users or console users. It's just about deciding what medium is the best fit for your game and how you can make that profitable for yourself. Steam taking a 30% cut does mean that if you choose that platform, you have to sell to 30% more players than you would on a different platform. Obviously, every game is different, just as every product is different. There's an infinite number of ways the product lifecycle can play out. I definitely don't want to convince you to quit your job and go all in on your dream game, but what I want is to inspire you to take a more business-minded approach to game development so that you can grow the career you desire in a sustainable manner. There are always exceptions which don't fit neatly into the product lifecycle. Consider games like Among Us and No Man's Sky, which either launched with a small reception or a hostile reception, but developed into games which we now love. I think that this year we've already seen plenty of games such as Balatro, Animal Well and Crow Country, which no investor would have bet on, but have been big hits. Compare that to something like Marvel Rivals, which gets panned as an Overwatch clone, and I think you can see that there's always room in the market for genuinely great work. Thanks for watching. This has been a video version of a blog post which first appeared on my Patreon. You can join for free as long as you have a Patreon account, and you'll get notified about future blog posts and other work that won't make it to YouTube. But if you just want to see more videos, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel and click the bell to get notified about new videos.